So reminding the here and now, this is establishing this one-pointedness, the place is here, time is now, awakened attention, alertness, the body sitting. So that refer to the body rather than my body. These possessive pronouns tend to convey the message that this body is really me. So I reflect the body sitting like this. The breathing. So it's like centering, composing, collecting together the scattered mind. The thinking process takes you out all over the place. You can be sitting here and be thinking about your home or your holiday in the Barbados or what you're going to do in the future, regrets about the past or whatever. But so a sense of composing, collecting, recollecting the obvious, the reality of this present moment is the body sitting, breathing, here and now. Now this is sati sampajanya, remembering, and establishing that sense of presence, pure presence, rather than operating from the sense of I am somebody who needs to do something, needs to practice in order to attain something I don't have more confidence. This retreat hopefully gives you more confidence, more confirmation in just the reality of being, a physical presence sitting like this. Tuning into or noticing the way it is in terms of the experience of sitting and breathing. And in the mood, we can be aware of just this emotional or mental quality you're experiencing. Early in the morning, or maybe sleepy or dull or bright, tired, rested. Whatever it is, the reality that you can actually observe your mental state. It's like this, I feel like this right this morning, I feel really groggy or sleepy. What is it that knows that is aware of the mood you're in, or the state of mind that you're experiencing at this moment? So establishing like the body, the body is something to use in meditation. So because it is a earthbound condition, it's heavy formation, isn't it? It's very, you can feel it. It's touch yourself. You can feel this sense of heaviness, of pressure sitting on the mat and so forth. It's temperature, sensitive to the temperature of the room, to the pressure of your clothes on your body, isn't it? You can feel it, just the way your clothes touch your body. So this is the awareness of this, of that which is happening here and now. Not about how you're going to meditate now in order to get your samadhi in the future. So this establishing, this using the body because the body's here and now. So you're not creating a fantasy or or judging it or exalting it or dismissing it. You're using it, using this formation for establishing mindfulness. Then the breathing, anapanasati, can be used both for samatha and vipassana. Concentrating on, focusing one's sole attention on the movement of the breath leads to tranquility. As you concentrate more and more, then the breath becomes finer and finer. So when you're concentrated, fixed on the breathing, the inhaling, exhaling of the body, you're not thinking about it anymore. You're not wandering. You're establishing mindfulness of the breath, so that your aim is just that function alone, not analyzing or thinking about it, judging it, but using this natural rhythm of the body, which, when concentrated, becomes more and more fine. It kind of disappears sometimes. So that is also, a skillful practice. Like, to develop samatha practices I don't disparage that. It's very skillful to cultivate levels of concentration, tranquility, the jhanas. These are all praiseworthy, skillful activities. But then vipassana is using this here and now for discernment rather than for just seeking tranquility. Reflect on this retreat, this opportunity. It's a kind of special situation where everything is kind of, it's like being spoon-fed, you don't have to go shopping at the mall or get caught up in cooking the food or doing this. You've discarded your mobiles, relinquished your laptops, and taken the precepts and the noble silence. And then the problems of your life right now, and say family problems, personal problems, problems at work, with the neighbors, whatever, don't try to solve all these problems. To see this as a holiday of the heart, as Lumpur Chah used to call it. So you're not here to solve your problems or anything like that, but just let go of them. And the problems you have on a personal level, with your families, neighbors, partners, friends, and so forth. What is it at this moment? It's a memory, isn't it? You remember my family, the problems at work, etc. This observing the way it is. It's not dismissing problems or not being responsible for how we live, but it's recognizing that at this very moment, while you're sitting, that thinking about your home, your family, your partner, your husband, wife, children, your relatives, work associates. What is that? And the reality of it now is a memory, isn't it? You remember them. So memory is impermanent. It arises, ceases. It's like anything else. Memory doesn't have much to it. It just kind of, it comes and goes very rapidly. The body is, has this sense of solidity, but memory is just kind of like soap bubbles or foam on the sea, just floating about, and then when you really look at them for what they are, there's nothing to them really. This attitude of letting go, or letting things be what they are. So this is like the insight into the second noble truth, the causes of suffering. Causes, that, why do we suffer? Because of ignorance, of dukkha. So when we don't understand dukkha, or this unsatisfactoriness, the nature of conditioned phenomena, if we're merely trying to find security in the insecure, or permanent happiness in changing conditions, we're always bound for despair and disappointment. You've set yourself up for misery because you're asking the impossible. There's no wisdom in it. Expecting permanent security, safety in conditions, or a permanent state of happiness from conditioned phenomena, it's performing its natural movement of change. So happiness comes and goes. Has no permanent ability to sustain itself for very long. So that's why even in affluent societies, wealthy families, and people with social privileges and education can still suffer, because with having all the best is still, and there's ignorance, still the motivating force, avijja, is what we come from. Then even having the very best of the material world and the best of the conditions, we're bound to be disappointed, bored, dissatisfied, lonely. So that's where this reflecting on the nature of conditioned phenomena, it's the pe sankhara Chah. So it really, because you understand it, it's not, it's really simple really on the verbal level, but to have the insight, constantly reflect on impermanence. Remind yourself that whatever you're feeling, thinking, experiencing, through the senses, through the body, through the mind, its very nature is anicca, or change. And you're observing change. You're not making value judgments about change being right or wrong, good or bad. It's the way it is. Remember during the American elections, President Obama, they're saying, change. We're for change. That's absolutely ridiculous, being for change. Of course, everybody wanted change from the previous American system. But was it changing too, you know? But this word change is, you know, like what we have now is, we can always think of something better, a better system, a better situation. So we want change for the better. You know, we'd like change to always make things better, so that, you know, the UK, it gets better and better. And then it's, you know, the problems with the economy, it's changing for the worse. It's getting worse and worse. And so that's Gordon Brown's fault. You know, blame it on the Labour Party or whatever. But change is just, you know, change, things get better and then they reach a peak and then they go the other way. Like inhaling, exhaling. Reflect on birth. We've all been born, physically born. You know, so the body now, this is the result of birth. This age, this sitting posture, this feeling. You know, if you were never born, you wouldn't be sitting here feeling anything. So when you get sick or have tragedies, losses of loved ones, disappointments, failures, successes or whatever, it's because of birth. We experience swine flu because of being born, or cancer, or whatever, you know, whatever the disease. Say, why me? Why should I have this disease? It's because of birth. And so this seems, you know, an obvious truism and fact, but it's also reminding yourself that there's nothing special about us. I've heard people who get, you know, terminal cancer, and then they say, why me? It's not fair. I'm still young, and why do I have to have this? And then the Dhamma reflection is, because you're born. Those who have never been born yet never get terminal cancer. So this is, you know, this is a way of reflecting in order to put into perspective the realities of conditioned phenomena, their nature, anicca, dukkha, anatta. So then the escape hatch is mindfulness. Amatassa tawara, the gate, the door to the deathless. And when we realize that, the body still goes through its natural karmic tendencies. It still gets old and gets sick and dies, but it's no longer seen through ignorance, through habit, through attachment, through fear and desire and anger and resentment. And then the sound of silence is try to just notice. So listen, this sense of listening, in this open, receptive listening. You notice this kind of resonating, scintillating background vibration. So I first noticed this became aware of it when the first year when I was a Samanera, a novice monk before meeting Ajahn Chah. And I lived for a whole year, nearly 1 year, in a little hut in northeast Thailand. And I noticed the first 3 months were, everything was coming from an active life. I'd been teacher, and involved in working and busyness. And then suddenly, in this little hut in northeast Thailand, with nothing to do, just with myself, they'd bring, some food every day, and that was it. And nobody could speak English. I couldn't speak Thai, so just being with myself for the first time in my life, kind of isolated, was pretty difficult at first, because my whole previous experience had been engaging or doing things, having things to read or distract myself, or talking to people, watching television or whatever. And then suddenly all that, you removed all that, and just in this state, there's nothing but a crude little hut and oneself. And so after a while, you kind of bear with the reaction, and then I began to notice I'd drop into these states of just kind of blissful states, and then I did notice this sound of silence. Then the reason why I talk about this is because it does give you, people that do use this and understand how to use it. It's very skillful, because you don't create it. It's not like a level of samadhi that depends on controlling a situation. Once you begin to recognize it, then you can integrate it into the movement of your body, walking practice, even anapanasati. Notice even using sound of silence with the breath stops, the mind to the tendency to wander away in thought. Because this sound of silence, if you just rest in it, kind of bathe in it, the thinking process, you're no longer wandering, you're no longer just distracting your mind, but you're present here and now. And your ability to reflect on this moment is like this, and being aware of the body, because in this sound of silence the body's present in it, any emotional feelings, pleasure, pain, the sense of self, the strong sense of me and mine, is like reflected in this sound, like a mirror reflecting something. You can see it. And then you can observe the changiness of personality, of sakkaya ditthi, how kind of very ephemeral and changing and dependent it is, how your personality changes according to the conditions you're experiencing. So this awareness, establishing this sense of awareness, sound of silence in the present, gives you a perspective from the escape hatch, sati sampajanya. to put into perspective the five khandhas, the Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana, or the six ayatanas, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind. And to see the conditions in terms of their characteristics, anicca, dukkha, anatta, rather than being identified with the quality of the condition, its refinement or coarseness, its beauty or ugliness. We have perspective on conditioned phenomena from the unconditioned awareness. So the Sakkaya Ditthi, personality, the first fetter, because all of us, people get confused, like the pure awareness from this point, like the physical, the human body itself, and the awareness from this point. It's conscious. And then what is that Sakkaya Ditthi? And what is Sakkaya Ditthi? It was translated as personality view, or easy reference to ego, or Freudian terms like that. But whatever it means, a created sense of self. How do you create yourself? How do you create your ego and your personality? What is it? So then of course, this Sakkaya Ditthi is, you have to think about yourself. You have to, you identify with your appearance. I'm this body. I'm a man or woman. I'm a Buddhist monk. I am a old man. Or whatever. You have to think about this, isn't it? You're identifying with the body, and assuming that this is mine, that I am this body. But from this point, from this stillness and silence, the body is what it is. But in order for it to become to own it, I have to start thinking, this is my body. When there's no thinking, when I'm not creating it into personal possession, the body is still present, and there's awareness. And it's like this, it's empty, it's not owning it, judging it, claiming it, blaming it, or whatever. It is like this, sitting, breathing. Pure sati sampajanya is pure subjectivity, but it's coming from a universal rather than a personal sense of me and mine. We create these personalities, and then we are attached to these perceptions of ourselves. And we don't know the difference, so we're easily hurt and harmed by people insulting us or blaming us or whatever. Because our personality is what we operate through a sense of me as a separate entity, as a person. So from this point of stillness, awareness, then you begin to, you're not trying to get rid of the personality, because that's another ignorant act, to just try to become nobody. Then you become somebody who's nobody, where you might have been before somebody that was somebody. But just notice as you rest in this sound of silence, there's kind of a sense of recognizing it first. It's just this simple discerning and letting go of any perceptions or feelings you have about it, just recognizing it. And the sense of this separateness, you see, it doesn't arise till you start thinking. Now, it's quite subtle. I mean, because we're, the whole cultural conditioning we all have is based on identity with the body, and one's position, one's relationships to others, one being a citizen of this society, or being related to parents and brothers and sisters and grandparents, whatever. A whole sense of self arises through these kind of perceptions. Mother, father, grandmother, grandfather, older brother, younger brother, elder sister, little sister. And then we have certain emotions arise, memories. But if we're not trying to, it's not getting rid of it, but noticing it, putting oneself into this escape hatch, this deathless, this amata dwara, the gate to the deathless, then we have perspective on the personality, conditions, conventions, cultural assumptions, attitudes that we don't have when we're just more or less fumbling around lost in the conditioned realm. It's just rearranging conditions and caught into this changing, this relentless changingness of conditioned phenomena. And this mindfulness puts us in to see change rather than be overwhelmed and lost in the changing conditions. So now when I really try to learning from my experience, being a Buddhist monk and living in this country for so many years, you can see the results, in oneself, in one's own practice, and then from the people you're living with, the people that you influence. So the aim is, to encourage. This retreat is what I'm doing. Is I'm trying to encourage you to awaken, to trust yourself, not to, to start questioning, to looking at the sense of yourself or your emotional habits in a way that isn't making them into personal problems or more kind of difficult, complicated things to deal with in your life. Because that's what we tend to see ourselves through, say maybe weaknesses or faults or habits. We easily disparage ourselves, and then there's a tendency in this society to think of that being honest about oneself is admitting weakness and faults, and that we really have problems with anger and unresolved resentments and jealousies and neurotic fears, and these are private things that we maybe only go to psychotherapists to talk about, Or if, to be honest about myself, I have to tell you about how the mistakes I've made in life and weaknesses and faults I see. But this is not doing that. It's not about confessing or dismissing anything, but recognizing. This is what mindfulness is: recognition, awakened, consciousness awakened with wisdom. So these teachings, the Dhamma teachings of the Buddha, they're skillful means. They're not pointing at themselves or to, judging you on a personal level, but they're there to be used for reminding, for reflecting on the way it is. As you experience this present moment in whatever quality, intensity that only you are aware of at this very moment, is like this. If you don't notice the sound of silence, don't make that into a problem. Just kind of remind yourself to relax and open. Just have this sense of gentleness rather than a kind of commanding imperative, or trying to find what, because you hear my words, sound of silence, so you think it's something rather that you've got to find. So, and if you don't notice it, or whatever you're experiencing now in regards to this particular way of speaking, it's like this. I don't know what he's talking about, is like this. I don't hear anything, it's like this. So you're not trying to find anything, but just know actually the conditions, the reactions that you're experiencing at this very moment. And listen to, if the reactions you're having. I'm talking, saying these things, sound of silence and gate to the deathless and all this. And how does that affect you? My tone of voice or my presence. It's just not to criticize, but just notice the reactions that you have to hearing me talk, is like this. So it's not a matter of trying to decide whether I'm right or wrong, or there's something wrong with you because you don't quite understand what I'm talking about. It's just learning to observe, be this knower, whatever emotional reaction, mental state that you happen to notice in the present. It is impermanent. It's anicca. It is the way it is.